All right, little tutorial here on another variation of a caddis pattern that I like. This is going to be the bloom caddis. Really kind of a parachute version of a caddis. And in the vise, I've got a Firehole 718. It's one of my favorite dry fly hooks. I'm going to do this one in a 14. Thread doesn't really matter all that much, but I'm going to use just some A-dot uni thread here in tan. And I'm going to measure out about the size that I want the head of this fly. And I'm just going to start my thread right there. So I'm just going to run this down. Get a little thread base on there. You don't really need a thread base because we're just going to come back up with just dubbing. But not going to hurt. Alright, dubbing wise, I've got this this tan caddis dry fly dubbing. I don't really have a brand for you. It came from a fly shop down in the Delaware River area. I think that might even be the brand, the Delaware something. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly, but it doesn't really matter. Any tan dry fly dub will work. A lot of companies actually have a tan caddis color. I don't have the package here because I use this dispenser here for all my dubbing, so the package is tucked away somewhere. But either way, no biggie. Just any tan caddis or just tan dry fly dub will work. I fish most of my caddis patterns in tan. So I'm just going to go and just get a nice even dubbing noodle on there. We'll finish out with the bare thread. Once the dubbing starts catching, we'll start working our way back up the shank. You don't have to worry too much about a taper. I usually don't taper my caddis bodies all that much. Just kind of lay that on straight. I can only make my dubbing noodle so long here when I film, so we'll throw a little bit more on there. And that's part of the reason why I like to measure out the length of my head before I even start, is I'm going to run this dubbing all the way up to where my thread stops. So right there at that little spot, it's going to be about the length of my body. So we'll go and fill in any gaps, make sure that's nice and smooth. Thought I had enough on there. That was way off. I always just kind of add more as needed. I've seen a lot of tires kind of load up a certain amount of dubbing and just nail it. I mean, I do that sometimes, but I do all my tapers and everything a little bit differently. All right. So now I'm going to finish this part of the bare shank with a little bit of a thread base, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some elk hair in there, and I don't want that just spinning around the shank. So nothing fancy here, just some regular natural elk hair. I've got that in my stacker. Give that a quick little stack. And let's see, we'll pull that out. All the tips lined up. I got a butt end that I can see. As soon as I pulled that out, that just drives me nuts. Where'd it go? Right there on top. So you got all those nice aligned tips, but buried right about here is a butt end, and I'll tell you, my OCD will not let me leave that there. I don't know about you guys, but if I got a butt end in my elk or deer hair, it's got to go. All right, there's that. Any others? You know, this is the second video that I filmed with this patch of elk hair, and this elk hair is crap. It's just, you know, that's the luck of getting things online. Sometimes you can't pick it out yourself, so sometimes you get a good patch, sometimes you get a rough patch. This one's not the best patch. I did a video, I think, a couple weeks ago with this same patch, and I had the same problem. But let's see. All right, so I got 2 of those butt ends ripped out of there. Let's see what we got here. Is that going to be doable? Yeah, that'll work. A little bit of extra fuzz. I don't know what the hell this elk was doing when it was alive, but it's got to get its life together. All right, that's about as cleaned up as I'm going to get it. So I'm just going to lay that right on there, kind of measure that out. I want those tips kind of extended just a little bit past the end of the body. Transfer your grip to your other hand. Oh, I knew that was going to happen. I kind of felt that coming. So this has happened a few times in some of my other videos. Part of me wants to stop and start the video over and make it seem like, you know, I'm some flawless tyer that can just sit down and everything works out perfect. That's not the case. That's not the case for any tyer. And you know, if it happens to everybody, sometimes I like to leave those mistakes in my videos to show you how to fix them. So now I got this strand here, a broken thread. All I'm going to do is just get it to where everything is flat and nice where I need it to be. And I'm just going to hold that in my fingertips. And if you have a smaller tag of broken thread, you can use a pair of hackle pliers. Where the hell's my hackle pliers? I got these English hackle pliers here I can clamp in. But this is a pretty long tag, so I can just grab this. And then what I'll do with my right hand, I'm going to put the bobbin right there, and I'm going to grip both the tag and the bobbin part with my finger, and then just get my thread going again and go right over the top of both. That'll get my thread going again and secure the tag end. And just like that, I'm back in business. So breaking your thread is going to happen. It's not the end of the world. Get that restacked. Problem is this, I like the A-dot for this, but this thread's kind of old. Probably a little brittle. Alright, so we'll measure that out again. We'll give this another shot. Give that a couple of wraps, bite it down. Tighten it up. This time try to not horse it. And what I usually do is I'm just going to hang right onto the wing as I slip my scissors up. Get that kind of snipped off at a taper. And you want to get all these off right away, because what's going to happen is you're going to be playing the bulk game. Meaning you got some other materials you're going to want to tie in, so you don't really want to build up the front of this fly too much. You want to leave yourself a little bit of room. But just work your scissors around, get all those things snipped off. Come in, clean up the eye a little bit. Keep those scissors angled. And let's see. Oh, and a big rogue guy on the back side. And I'm just going to give a few extra snips here just to make sure that when I clean it up with the thread, it doesn't cover up my eye. So now I'm just going to take some wraps and get all of that cinched down, cleaned up. And we're all good. Alright, that'll do. Kind of mash that down. I like my caddis wings to splay out a little bit more than they normally do. Alright, next thing I'm going to tie in here is going to be a little bit of this sparkle emerger, and I'm going to do this with the amber, kind of an orangish color. That's good for a cider. So I'm just going to take a whole chunk of this, and I'm going to slip this in behind my thread, and then bring it down, and then tighten it on there with a few wraps. Once that's secured, I'm going to raise both of those sides up, and we're going to start bringing our thread around and building up our post. So all you really need to do is hold this tight, get a wrap down on the bottom nice and tight, get a nice start to this, and then you can kind of work your way up and actually apply a little bit more pressure than you'd think you'd be able to. Just run that thread right up the post. Hold on to it as you're wrapping around, and then when you come back towards you, you can kind of just let it go. And you don't need a particularly huge post. You got deer hair and dubbing. You got more than enough materials to keep this fly afloat, so you don't have to go too crazy. I caught a little fiber in there, which not a big deal. Just rip that right off, and we're good. All right. So we do have to dub the head a little bit more, but before we do that, I've got a piece of brown hackle here that I'm going to take the shiny side, or the colorful side, and I'm going to face that up. And I'm just going to tie this with 2 loose wraps Let's go 3. As close to the post as possible. And then I'm going to just pull that up until I get to the point. See where the barbs start? I'm lining up the start of the barbs with the end of my post. That's why I'm pulling that up after the fact. And then I'm just going to pull everything up, run my thread right up the post, get the hackle secured. And then run my thread back down. Let me give that a little snip. I don't want to cut too much off. I actually want to tie in some of that onto the head of the fly. So let's close that in with some thread. And we're good. I got a little rogue chunk sticking out under here. I'll slip some fine point scissors in there, get that out of there. All right, so let's get a little bit more dubbing. We want to clean up that head and get all that closed in. Let's see. All right, come on, get on there. And of course, as with any caddis, any fly, really, to be honest with you, mixing up the colors, mixing up the hair, mixing up the color of the emerger yarn, all different options. You know, whatever you like. It's just in my area, I understand that the green apple caddis and the black caddis and all that kind of stuff exists. I just got to be honest with you. In my home waters, most of the time, what I see are these tan caddis. I do see others, but more often than not, it's these tan caddis flying around, and that's what I see mostly. So most of my caddis imitations are tan and have to be that way. And obviously, there's you know, wherever you are, you can adjust it to where you are. But for me, it's a lot of tan. All right. I think I grabbed another little rogue fiber on the back side. Flip this over. Oh, I grabbed a few. That wing shifted a little bit on me. But no biggie. I'm just going to slip that in there, get those out of there. Come on. Like sticking to the dubbing. There we go. All right. So we're going to kind of finish this up, but I don't want to wrap bare thread. I want to make sure that everything stays covered. So I'm just going to put a little bit more dubbing on here, not because I think the head needs more, but I got another wrap or two I want to make just to fill in that little bit. And then what I'm going to do is, see how my thread is going towards the back? Instead of bringing that back down for another wrap, I'm instead going to go this way around the bottom of the post. And then I'm just going to take my thread and just rest it on this little knob here on my vise. So now I'm going to take my vise, I'm going to loosen it a little bit, and I'm going to bring my fly, hang it upside down kind of like that. That'll make the wrapping of the hackle a little bit easier. And I'm going to wrap this the same way I wrap all my parachutes. The only thing you got to do is try to not grab that deer hair on your way through. If you do, it's really not a big deal, but that is something you can run into. I got a little bit of a bump of thread at the top of my post here that's kind of moving my hackle around, but no biggie. The closer you get, the tougher it is to not grab some of that deer hair, but it'll probably happen. So now that I've got all my wraps, I'm going to hold my hackle towards me. Actually, it's kind of hard to see. Let me move that up a little bit. Get up there. So I'm going to run my thread to hold the hackle. Bring my deer hair, my elk hair down so I don't grab that. Get a couple of wraps in. And slip some scissors in there as close as you can. Get those snipped off. We'll come in here, we'll measure this out. I don't like a huge post on that fly, so I'm going to cut it fairly close. And We're going to get in here with a whip finish, and I'm going to whip finish this right on the post. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Let's get that straightened back up. Actually, bring that down. I forgot I raised my vise. Get it down there. All right, let's see if we got any cleanup we got to do on the back side. That looks pretty good. And that is pretty much it. It looks like I got one little rogue piece of elk hair. I told you it's hard to not grab the elk hair, but it really doesn't matter. There we go. All right, so that is that. That is your bloom. That's your bloom caddis. Pretty straightforward caddis imitation. Floats like crazy. As I said in the beginning, pretty much just a parachute caddis. Do it up in a number of different colors. I like the tan. That amber post right there really helps me see it too. You can do a different color too. If you fish a little bit closer at dark, you know, you would think, hey, you know, I got to do white or something like that for the post. I do fish this quite a bit at dark too. Don't shy away from the dark colors. I've even used a black post before. You'd be surprised how well you can actually see a black post at certain times of night. So I've used that quite a bit. But either way, pretty straightforward fly, parachute caddis, real effective pattern. Questions, anything, just throw them in the comments and I'll respond as quick as I can.